me د.هاني الحسني, and that's the course of novel. I wish you have kind of understanding for the introduction of our mutual friends by Charles Dickens. This novel, it has so many characters, and we don't have to memorize each one, but I ask you just to understand in depth what's going on with the major characters. It means you should focus on such major characters, and if you have extra time to read the details in the chapters, that will be great and wonderful for understanding. Therefore, I suggested you to keep reading and find out some important actions, quotations, and also style of writing. You can memorize how the Dickens writing style it changed from here and there and so forth, or so on and so forth. We could recognize how the flow of each character and the benefit of the characters look like. Next here, I show you major characters, and for this major characters we need to understand something about the major characters, which is started with the following issues. Let's first of all remember the main characters. Actually, the whole story, as we said, is about John Harmon, who has received a will, and the will, it's about he should marry Bella Wilfer in case he could receive all the wealth and the bequest from his father, or the father that he already died in maybe in illness. And here, if we want to read something about John Harmon, which he represented a resurrection idea, this idea of resurrection, it's really attracted so many people in the 18th century. Why? Because the idea of resurrection, it's related to the part of Christianity and baptism, and in that regard, John Harmon is a sophisticated character, is here to the Harmon state. So he is the heir. The heir, it means the person who received his father's estate or his father properties under the condition that he marry Bella Wilfer. So there is one condition in the will that being left from his father, he should marry Bella Wilfer. He is presumed dead throughout most of the novel, though he is living under the name of John Rooksmith. So that the point here, maybe Bella and others, Mr. and Mrs. Boffin, thought no one can get the will except them, because they are servants in Mr. Harmon home, or the father of John Harmon. And John Rooksmith, he is working as a secretary for the Boffins. It means when he back to his father's house, he didn't announce or show off himself as a person, as Joe Harmon, because everyone realized that John Harmon is already dead. And he worked in an attempt to get to know better Bella, his future wife, and that's why Bella at the beginning rejected him. But Mr. Harmon, I mean Buffin and Mrs. Buffin tried to separate Bella from John Rooksmith, which he is later will be John Harmon. At the end, he will marry Bella, but before that, when Harmon throw him in the river, he back to see his city, London, as Julius Handford. So he's also, instead of using John Rooksmith for the whole novel, he back for limited time to use identity, which called Julius Handford. And upon first returning to London, or his first return to London, he used it for like, I don't know, like maybe few or just limited time in the hotel, when he rented a hotel or get a room in the hotel. Harmon death and subsequent of resurrection of Rooksmith or Handford is consistent with Dickens' recurring theme in the novel of rebirth. So, you know, the rebirth from the water, or when you look at the seed, you have a thing, and this seed, which is no life in it, suddenly has a life when it becomes a tree. And his upward social mobility through his own efforts is presented as valuable in contrast with Headstone, Hexham, and Lamelles. So what we need from here of rebirth, others, they didn't get the rebirth and they just died. And in that regard, his social mobility is change, and he became, or he received what he wanted at the end of the novel by marrying Bella Wilfer, and that's how he could receive or get all the bequest and the properties and inheritance from his father legally without any trouble or problem. Second character, Bella Wilfer, we said she is tough at the beginning. We could recognize that she is not an easy character to deal with, even she's still young, and at the same time she is a beautiful girl born into poverty. She started her life with poverty, and she lived in lower class, and then later on she jumped to be in higher class after Mr. Harmon, or the father of John Harmon, did or death. And the point here, the death of old Mr. Harmon, that she is the intended wife for his son, she realized about the condition of inheritance. That's why she didn't worry about anything, because at the end of the day she will receive something. When her intended husband, John Harmon, is reported to be killed, she is left without future prospects. That's why she had that doubt about the money and how she can get this money. Even she lived with the servants, Buffin, those who became suddenly a rich Buffin. So they are not or they are no longer poor Puffins or servants Puffins. They became the newly rich Puffins. And Bella rejects Rooksmith's proposal when John Smith, which he is in the same character as John Harmon, proposed her to marry her or approach her for marriage. She didn't accept him because he's a secretary, and her class is already higher class. How she could accept someone in lower class or just middle class? So initially described as mercenary young woman who described herself as meeting lazy Hexham as having no more character than a canary bird. So she has she could be described as canary bird. Bella undergoes significant moral change in the novel. How? Because she accepted John Rooksmith to marry her, even he is from another what we call another class, and her complexity is eventually displayed in her ability to defy the societal pressure. She rejected Mrs. Buffin advice to not marry him, and she convinced John Rooksmith that she wanted to be with him, even nobody agreed. And later she found the unconditional happiness and the wealth because she followed her heart, and she is praised for her vivacity, life likeness. So she is really very clear with others, and she has that complexity to defy those who brought her to the home of old Mr. Harmon, the dead man. Even her relationship with her father is more like of mother and son. She consistent with him and calling him from time to time. I mean, she has an open and warm relationship with her father, which provides a stark contrast to the strained and resentless or resentful relationship between Bella and her mother and sister. So, what we need to understand that her relationship with mother is not okay, but her relationship with her father is still fine. That's the way for understanding the relationship of Bella and how she is a quite complex and tough character. We have here Mr. Buffin, or he called Nicodemus or Nodi. Sometimes they call him as a servant Nodi, sometimes a Golden Dustman, sometime in the end of the novel Mr. Buffin, because he became a rich man. So he moved on by many names, and at the end of the day, he became Mr. Buffin. It means he got a huge respect from his society as he received the property and inheritance before later on changed. So he is bumbling and naive. Naive, it means he is quite strong and he used his own powerful voice and character to show his opinion. Even he is loyal and kind in the same time, loyal to old Mr. Harmons, and he becomes a member of Novicus Riches when old Harmons here is considered dead. So he received all of him, old Mr. Harmon, property and inheritance. He was also illiterate. He is not educated man, and that's why, because he's not educated, we can understand the point of how he hired Silas Wigg to read to him in hopes of gaining more intelligence and wordness. So he felt that he is illiterate, he is an ignorant man, and that's why, because he has wealth, he should be intelligent. And after all of his life of serving old Mr. Harmon, that's why he asked Silas Wigg to help him. He is nearly blackmailed by Wigg. He assumes the role of Mr. to show Bella the dangers of wealth, but eventually admits this behavior was act and gives his money to Bella and John. So Buffin's innocence, naive curiosity, and desire to learn in his new position in life contrasts with his elaborate performance as Buffin the Miser. So he is a servant, and suddenly he became to be a master and become Mr. Buffin, not anymore Nudie. Critics speculate that Dickens' decision to have Buffins playing a party may not have been planned, as it was not very convincing for a man who has shown his simplicity, ignorance on several occasions. So what we need to know about Mr. Buffin, at the end of the day, he dealt with different characters, and what we need to know that he has unfortunate end at the end of the novel, because nothing became with him and he back to be a servant again. So he didn't enjoy the inheritance for a long time. And also Mrs. Buffin, she is not Buffin wife, and in that part, what we need to know about her, she adopted Johnny. She adopted Johnny, the orphan kid, and she had kind of what we call developmental character, and later on she changed her social class, and she has that ability to be in social reform. Silas Wigg is a ballad seller with a wooden leg, so that's how he looks like. He's a seller, he has wooden leg, he is a social parasite hired to read for Buffins. So Mr. Buffins or the Mr. and Mrs. Buffin, especially Mr. Buffin, asked him to learn from him, or to let Mr. Silas teach him. And later, Wig realized that he cannot be literate because it needs longer time. And Wig finds Harmon will in the dust heaps, and he is attempting to blackmail Buffin. Why? Because he wished to get some money from his service, and Wig claimed that he could receive a respectful or a kind of respect, and that's what we call juxtaposing. Juxtaposing, it means he used the sense of humor to be inconsistent, and at the same time he is so cunning to ask for what he wanted. That's why juxtaposing is kind, when we say juxtaposing or juxtaposition, it's when you have kind of character who can play with the sense of humor and play with people to make them inconsistent. Later on, we have Jafar Hexam is not a pleasant guy to be around. Not only does he makes his living by hauling dead bodies, so he dealing with dead bodies. That's a very quick explanation about Jafar Hexam. Lizzie Hexam, the daughter of Jafar Hexam. So she is a daughter and sister of Charlie Hexam. She is an affectionate daughter, but knows that Charlie must escape their living circumstances if he is to succeed in life. It means Lizzie and Charlie, they are preparing for changing their life condition and social class by finding out a source of money maybe. And Charlie, her money and helps him Lizzie helped Charlie to leave while their father is away. Later she is rejected by Charlie after she remains in poverty. It means Charlie didn't help her because she's still in poverty situation. And there is something happened by Bradley Headstone and Eugene Rayburn. She fears Headstone's violent passion and yearns for Rayburn's love. So she is very affectionate. She looked for emotions, and she wanted to marry. And Lizzie saves Rayburn from Headstone's attack, and the two are married. So it means Lizzie married Rayburn because Headstone attacked him, and that's how the story started between Lizzie and Rayburn when she saved his life. And she almost acting in many situations like she has an ego. Dickens carries what we call over her moral superiority into her physical characterization. What we need to know about Lizzie, that she has some emotions, and she also a character that married Rayburn because she saved him from Headstone when Headstone attacked Rayburn. And also, at the end, her moral character attracts Rayburn, and her inherent goodness is rewarded with marital happiness. So the story is about ending happily by marriage. That's the Lizzie Hexam, how she convinced someone instead of convincing Charlie. She convinced Eugene Rayburn to marry her. Charlie Hexam is the son of J.C. Jafar Hexam and the brother of Lizzie, and also originally a very caring brother. This changes what happened to her because she's still he's still in poverty. Then he became a rich man or a man with money, and then Hexam is brilliant and morally corrupted. He corrupted by what? By getting some money, and after getting some money, his mentality and psychology changed because he didn't want to look back at his past. He just looked at his future and present as a man with money, and his social class just changed. So that's the point here. We have Mortimer Lightwood. It's what we call here is a lawyer who is an acquaintance of Veneerings. So Veneerings here is a kind of character, and later we know him. And Eugene Rayburn acts as a storyteller. So Mortimer Lightwood, he is a storyteller and the reader of other characters. In the same time, under the mass irony, he assumes in telling his stories, he feels true friendship for Eugene. So when they were in the ship, Mortimer keep reading such stories, and Twimlow concerned about his stories, and he has such kind of sarcasm stories. From time to time, he give advice for others. So Mortimer Lightwood is not very attractive. At the same time, he has a rule. Eugene Rapin, we said by the end he is our heroes, or one as a second hero, because he did something to Mr. Harmon, or John Harmon. He's a close friend to Maritime and involved in love with Lizzie, as we said before. And we know like Headstone already kicked out. Both these characters act false to Rayburn. Lizzie contrasts with Eugene, more negative traits. So when we know that Harmon or Rooksmith reborn after the incident of River, we know that he discovered the John Smith still, or John Rooksmith still alive, and that's how he brought him back to his will, and that's why he married Lizzie at the end in order to save her reputation, even though she is socially below him. So he want to save her reputation, he want to save her, and that's the case for understanding his character. He is very caring, and he has some morals to keep Lizzie reputation. That's the Eugene Rayburn character. Next, we have Jenny Wren. Jenny Wren here, it's a character which real name is Fanny Cleaver, and she has a kind of connection with Lizzie. Lives after her father dies. She is crippled with a bad back, though not ugly. She has a problem in her body physically. She is motherly towards her drunken father, whom she calls her bad child. So she didn't get a good reputation as well, but at the same time, she has a rule to be a caretaker and pleasant of flowers, also bird songs, number of blessed. So she did something for caretaking and reflects mind ability to rise above adverse circumstances. Mr. Ria is another character after Jenny character. Her character, we say she is caretaker. Ria is the non-Christian man. He is the only one. He is a Jew, and when we say he's a Jew, Mr. Fledge buys money. So he has a money lending business, and he cares for and assistant or assist Lizzie Hicksam and Jenny Rain for when they have no one else. So Mr. Ria take care of both girls, and some critic realize that it's kind of stereotyping like Fagin. So Fagin and Oliver Twist already got a home, and he asks all the orphans to be in his home just for his service. And Mr. Ria here in the same function, he accepted Lizzie Hicksam and Jenny Rain in his home, also with little benefit, as also he is a Jew. However, some still take issue with Ria, asserting that he is too gentle to be believable human being. So he is too gentle and he treated them very well. Bradley Headstone, we say that's the educated man, and later what we realize that he has kind of what we call character that later on they will fought for what we fought with Mr. Rayburn murder. So he's trying to get Rayburn murdering, but he found himself dead later on. So he's presented by Dickens as an animal in the night and a respectable mechanical school teacher during the day. So Dickens also demonstrates the way identity can be manipulated. Headstone also serves for foil for Rayburn and his evil nature, intelligence, wherein as much lazy goodness helps him. So he has jealousy. He wanted to kill his friend to get the inheritance. So that's the Headstone character. Later we have Mr. Venus. He is a taxidermist, or the taxi and articulate of bones. He deal with bones and he deal with dead bodies. Later, what happened to him? He he is in love with Pleasant Riderhood, and then they married. He meets Silas Wigg also in the home of Mr. Boffins. Also, what he did, Dickens is said to have based Mr. Venus on the real taxidermist named G. Wells. So he renders among Dickens' most outlandish least characteristics. So it means that he has the least realistic, and because he keeps pretending he has also ambulated, or he deal with Mr. Wigg because he has ambulated leg. So what we need to know is just about he is a taxidermist. That's the character. It's not a big deal with him. It's not so important. We have Mr. Alfred Lamel. So we have Mr. Alfred Lamel. He is what we call a character that has the little impact when we realize that Mr. Alfred Lamel married Sophronia Lamely. So both of them, they enjoy the marriage, and at the same time they have fair wealth, and also they gain money from who? They gain money from different sites, and Mr. Boffin, they have received some amount of money from here and there. We have Mrs. Sophronia Lamely. She also the wife of Alfred. Her character, she dealt with him, or she dealt with her wife because she believed he had money. So her marriage with Alfred because of money, not because of anything else. And later there is a trap. Georgina Budsnap in marriage with Fledgepie through Sophronia repents before this plan can be more fruition. So she also arranged some marriages for others. We have Georgina Budsnap, daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Budsnap, who is very sheltered, shy, trusting, and naive. Because of this, she is taken advantage of by more manipulative upper-class characters such as Fledgepie and Lamelles, who scheme to befriend her and take her money. So it's all about financial or problem of money. They call all of them corrupted because of money. They think of money all the time, even with relationship. She trapped in marriage with Fledgepie until Sophronia suffers a change of heart. So, you know, even she let her marry a normal man or just a poor man. But later, what happened to Sophronia Lamela? She got heart problems in her body. Mr. Fledgeby, he also called fascination or fascination. Fledgeby is a friend of Lamellus, and what happened to him when we say he is a money lending business. And at the same time, we can see that Fledge nearly marries Georgina, and then what happened? Sophronia Lamely backs out of the scheme, and once Fledgeby is no longer allied with Lamellus. So Mr. Fledgeby tried to marry Sophronia, and she played a game not to marry him, but marry a rich man, another rich man, as we said, his name Alfred Lamellus. The other character, Roger or Roge, his Jaffer Hicksam's partner until Jaffer rejects him when he is convicted of theft. So he was a partner for with Jaffer Hicksam, and then he caught him, or he was caught by Jaffer in a kind of theft or robbery, and that's why they ended the relationship. Also, for him, what happened to Roger? He has a kind of action when he threw the two men in the river, and later on, Riderhood represents a opportunistic character who still or who will change his behavior according to whatever, and he didn't die. So that's the point here. We have Reginald or Wilfer, Bella Wilfer, doting father. So he was gentle, kind, and later he is often called the cherub. No problem in it. We have here in the second part minor character. We have Mr. Inspector, a police officer. So he didn't deal too much with issues except dealing with corpses. So people who are dead, he look after the corpse, and in his part when the corpse from the river is mistakenly identified as John Harmon. So he has the part to identify wrongly the John Harmon corpse, and that's how the story changed. The point for it is he leads doubt about justice system in the novel. So he has kind of one task to show injustice level of the novel. We have Mr. John Potsnap. As we say, Mr. John Potsnap here is dealing with a pompous man of the upper middle class, married Mrs. Potsnap, and Dickens' lifelong friend and official biographer. However, Dickens insisted he only used some of Forster's mannerism for this character. So this character is about what? It's about society. It's shown his disapproval of lazy and Eugene marriage. Mrs. Potsnap, the mother of Georgina Potsnap, though she embodies materialistic ideals of her husband and daughter, so she is also very materialistic. Mrs. Wilfer, Bella's mother, woman who is never satisfied with what she has, and her halfness is apparent in the way she acts at Buffin's home. And when Bella and Rocksmith return after their wedding, her animosity towards her husband, her agreed and discontent, contrasts with her husband's good nature. So she always unsatisfied. Main character also, we have Lavinia Wilfer, Bella's younger sister, and George Sampson's fiancée. Her desire for money and appreciates of other aspects of life. So all of them, they have desire for money. George Sampson, Lavinia Wilfer, suitor, who is originally in love with Bella. So he loved Bella, but at the same time, Bella preferred John Smith. Mr. Melvin Twimlow, he has the well-connected friends of the Veerings, who is often cultivated for his supposed influence with powerful people such as Lord Sneworth, Mrs. Lamley, and Twimlow. And last, we have Mr. Betty Hedgen or Mrs. Betty Hedgen. She is a childminder who takes in care of children, and she has just little important action in that novel. Later, we have here Johnny. Johnny is another minor character. She is an orphan, and she lived with Buffins, but Johnny dies in the what we call dies in the children's hospital before they are able to do so. Sloppy also in taking care of the children assists Betty Higgin. So he assists the Higgin to take care of children. He is portrayed as inherently innocent because of his disability. So he has disability. He cannot move normally, and carries away wig at the end of novel. Jesse Jaffer Hicksam, a waterman and the father of Lizzie, he has no important role here unless Jaffer predicted the alienating effect education would have on Charlie. Pleasant Riderhood, daughter of Roche Riderhood, and works in pawn shop, and also she eventually marries Mr. Venus. So Pleasant Riderhood, she married Venus. Mr. and Mrs. Veneerings, they deal with they are very rich husband and wife. At the same time, they wear their acquaintance, their positions, and their wealth like jewelry is an attempt to impose those around them, and they like the attraction. And Veneering goes bankrupt at the end of the story, retire to France, and then live on the jewels he bought for his wife. So at the end of the story, they have bankruptcy, they don't have money. And later we have here kind of a few characters. I think that's the last for minor characters. We have Miss Abby Potterson, mistress of the Six Julie Fellowship Porters, and we have Miss Peacher, a school teacher who is in love with Bradley Hiddleston. She is a good and harmless, so just we need to know in love with Bradley Hiddleston, and that's it. Mr. Dulles, Johnny Wren, alcoholic father. He is almost into addiction to alcohol, and what happened here at the end, he is never called by name then my bad child or Mr. Dulles. So he has a name, Fanny Clever, but no one called him nothing but Mr. Dulles. George Radfoot, third mate in the ship of John Harmon, who back to England, whose dead body found in the river. So who kicked out in the river, his name called George Radfoot. He back with John Harmon in the same ship, but they killed him and kicked him in the river. He had been involved in crimes and schemes with Riderhood, who most likely was responsible for trying to kill Harmon and killing Radfoot. So the point here, how is the story defining a lot of characters? Each one has a role in the story. And last, thank you for listening for the characters. I wish to see you later. This is me again, Dr. Al-Hasani, for the novel course. Later we will talk more and more about the plot. I wish next week to talk in details about it.